Well, hi and welcome back to the Healthy Metal Hippie. Today we have with us Vicky Crone. She is the founder of Cherry Silk, which is an online sex shop, as well as her intimacy membership and a whole number of courses. She is our sexpert here for you today.
I love that. Hi, thank you for having
Hi.
me.
Thank you so much for being here, Vicky. We met a few months ago and I just knew we had an instant connection. Unfortunately, we bonded over very sad events, a lot of trauma, sexual abuse, domestic violence, and it seemed to just pull us together. The stars were aligned for us to meet.
They were.
And and now you help people transform their life for success after domestic violence. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, sure. So hello and thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here and it's so lovely to speak to you. As you said, we did connect over something that's not a very nice thing to experience. So yes, I was in an abusive relationship and I did experience all sorts of horrific stuff, sexual abuse being one of them, stalking, psychological abuse, for many years. I lived in 3 different women's refuges. I have been through the family courts twice. Just lots of stuff associated with domestic abuse. And it really has given me the power now to tell my story and to speak out and to advocate for advocate for other women. And so that's what I do. And really on my journey after sort of coming out of this period of my life, my sense of self was taken away from me, as I'm sure you probably know yourself too. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so it
I
was
think
really,
it's common for
yes, definitely.
most people coming out, at least, if not all of
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
you know.
100%, definitely. And so it was really that journey of sort of learning who I was again, that led me to sort of the kind of work that I do. Because one of those things that included was my sexuality and owning my body again, especially after sexual abuse. And it's so hard to feel safe in when you come to have a new relationship in those sort of intimate moments. It's so hard to feel safe in those moments when you've experienced something that your body automatically tells you that that situation is not safe and you're in danger. So really I wanted to create something that helped women to feel safe and to feel pleasure again in their own bodies. And so I sort of began this journey. I met my now husband, and it sort of just aligned that we ended up opening this sex store. And so everything I do is sex positive, pleasure positive, and just owning who you are and being safe and relaxed in your own body.
I mean, it's so important. We were talking just before we started a little bit about finding that safety after, with a new partner, or even finding it in yourself. That safety, there is joy and pleasure, and again, safety in that sexual freedom, whether it's with yourself or with a partner, or whatever the case may be for you. It's I mean, I think that's for me, I found that was one of the hardest things to take back after.
Mhm.
And I think, and it stemmed probably from a long period of time in my life. And now I'm like, oh, I didn't know it could be that good.
Mhm.
And so, and so it's a great thing. So it's really, really important work that you do with people every day.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's shocking. What, you know, One of the biggest things is it's such a journey to get out of a relationship like that. There's lots of planning involved. There's lots of questioning. There's fear. There's a million emotions that are going through you. And I guess I even just talking about it kind of brings me back to that place too, which is just like it's uh it's so huge. It's hard to even describe it to
Yeah.
somebody, everything that you go through.
Yeah.
And so how exactly were you always interested in like working, I don't know how to say it, not working in
Pleasure.
sex, but being being an advocate of pleasure. Were you
Yeah.
always into that, or is it something new?
No, it's very much born out of having that control taken away. And like you said, it is all of those things that you go through. The main thing for me, and the one of the most common things that I see, is trying to take back sort of that power. So I feel like it's completely stripped from you. When you're in a controlling and coercive relationship, that sense of who you are is completely stripped from you, and you are living by like on their terms. So when you suddenly find that you're not in that relationship anymore, um you then begin, trying to come to terms that, with the fact that you are actually a human being, and you have your own faults and your own opinions. And actually, what I was really interested in is the psychology. So I actually went on to do a psychology degree
Oh,
afterwards. And for me, that's always been a factor. I studied it in college alongside law. So I've always been really interested and fascinated with the human brain. And so, throughout the journey after that relationship, um, I not only learn so much about, human behavior, why we do the things that we do, and, how we react in certain situations, but I also learned, it went hand in hand with that sense of self and learning how we take back that power. Because as you said, there's so much that goes on when you leave a relationship like that. Is In my opinion, you afterwards, you haven't actually left yet. You know,
mhm.
you've survived, and you're here, and you're on this healing journey. But until you reach that point where you understand that you are, human, you are worthy, and you are absolutely valid in this world, and that takes time, and it takes like a different amount of time for every single person who goes through it. Yeah, so it sort of went hand in hand, this sort of journey of coming out of being a survivor, but then also not only just surviving, sort of went hand in hand with the things that I was learning about, human behavior, and sex and pleasure, and especially with sort of the sexual abuse theme, um, kept rising, and just fascinated me. It fascinated me, and it makes me feel, how can I say this? It just it's giving that power back. It's taking the power over your body back, and being in control of who you are and what you are and who you want to be.
Yeah, it's huge. Do you so one thing that I found when I was working with a therapist after leaving, I did not know that I was being sexually abused. And it was a very disturbing discovery for me when I found this out. And do you find that there are lots of people that aren't really totally aware that it is sexual abuse that they're experiencing?
Yeah, because it comes from this. It comes from a lack of sex education. Our society and the culture that you know across worldwide, there's there's such a lack of sex education and sort of just knowing, consent. I was not taught consent in school,
No, me
Like,
neither.
why are we not being taught consent in school? That's the most important thing. And I think that if we had had that, if we had had a comprehensive sex education growing up, then we'd have those tools to recognize what was happening in that situation. And although I say that and say that, you can recognize it, um, like you will find with me, I felt like there was something not right, but I didn't know either. I couldn't
Hmm.
quite describe what wasn't right. I just felt like it wasn't right. And then some people do know, and obviously all of us are unable to leave until we make that decision and all of the stuff that comes with that decision. So it really does come from that lack of education. I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right too. I saw this study before, and I think I sent a little pieces of it what I could find, but it was about, it was mostly teenagers, but they were saying, um, "Is this rape?" Okay,
Mhm.
and so people were saying, it was very very high percentages saying that if you said yes and then you changed your mind, it's okay for the guy, let's just say it's the guy, to still go ahead.
Mhm.
Changing your mind is not allowed because you said yes.
Mhm.
If you're intoxicated and consent while you're drunk, they're saying that's not rape.
Mhm.
And you sit there, and it's really worrying, these kind of ideas that have been like ingrained into everybody's mind, not just young people, but everybody's mind. If you're married, you can't be raped.
Mhm.
Like, all these thoughts, and I mean that they're wildly incorrect,
Mhm.
obviously.
Yes.
You can be raped by your spouse.
Yeah.
You are not a consenting person if you're
Mhm.
intoxicated.
Mhm.
Like, so where I know my son in school, he's getting some education now on relationships and on consent and things like that. But how young do you think it should start? Because I think they started in like year 4 talking about consent already, which I think
Yeah.
is amazing. It's
Yeah. Do you
amazing.
know, I honestly feel that it goes, back to sort of birth or toddler years, because it starts with and I'm very passionate about making a child give someone a cuddle goodbye. I really think it starts at that time in their lives. And I don't think that a child should be made, because of this social etiquette, to kiss or cuddle anyone goodbye, to shake hands if they don't want to. I think that child should be given, the power to say no.
Yep.
And I've really, I have 3 children, and my two eldest children, um, sort of went through that abuse with me, lived in the refuges and stuff with me. But my youngest, she's 6, and she was from a later relationship. And so, really, when I look at the difference in my parenting styles, and I mean, was I even a parent with the other two? Because all this stuff was happening to me that we just survived, and that is the
Yeah.
total truth of it. We did just
Yeah.
survive, but I can see the difference in my youngest, and I knew, that she was going to be given that power to say no whenever she wanted to say no,
Yeah.
and she does. And you know what? She's a happy, confident little girl. As I said, she's 6, so they learn sort of age appropriate relationship things
Yeah.
in school, and she's a happy, confident little girl, and she is so willing to give anyone a cuddle, to be kind to anyone, to help anyone up, and to hold their hand and stuff. But there are times, like, she knows when that she's going to give that help. She also knows when someone is making her feel like she doesn't want to give that help, and she will say
Yep.
no. And she said to me the other week, they learned in school this action of pushing someone away, physically saying no like this. So
Hmm.
not physically pushing them, sorry, just pushing your hands
But
outward
just, yeah.
and saying no. So they're learning things like that in school, which I think is really, really important. And so as long as it's age appropriate, as early as possible, I
Yeah.
think.
And you know what? And I agree. I've never been one to force my son for hugs and kisses. It's like, you don't need to.
Yeah.
They they'll show affection when they want to, and he was not a cuddly baby. So I feel like for him and just how he is as a person, that wouldn't have been right for him, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I think you're right though, that education, how we change this kind of culture that we've all perpetuated generations over generations, it does start with that very young
Mm.
education. So
Yeah.
important.
Can I
Was
just
there, sorry,
sorry.
go ahead. No, no, no.
Just to add, sorry, because you mentioned about sort of the rape thing and how that study on whether it was rape and things like that. And do you know what? It's not just that education system that it is changing, yes, but also it's I don't know how to the people of authority. So even in the police force, through the family courts, I didn't have the first time I went to family court, I did not have a very good experience. I felt like I was the one in the wrong. And I've been made to throughout my whole journey, I was made to feel so many times that I was the person in the wrong by the police. I've been shouted at police officers before, saying that it's my fault. And it wasn't recently I had a conversation with my local sexual abuse unit, and two lovely ladies, and they come round and we had a conversation about this because I reported the rape years ago, and it was in with all different charges and stuff like that. Did nothing ever came out of it, okay? And I wasn't
Right.
entirely sure why, but I do know that sort of the other offences were outdated by the time they caught him. He was a serial runner. And we had this conversation. I had this conversation with these ladies that are police officers on my local sexual abuse unit for adults. And I said, I sort of described the situation. And they said, no, sorry, I didn't describe the rape. I described another situation that I believe is like sexual abuse, and
Hmm.
I would call it rape. And it's this situation that women find themselves in so often where they've said no so many times, and this person is coercing them and bullying them into doing this act. And as soon as that person says yes, if that woman says yes, it's no longer considered rape. And that
Really?
was this year in 2024.
No.
Might have been the end of last year. So there are still so many things that need to change. It was only in 92 in the UK, in England, that it became illegal to rape your spouse. So that was only 32 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not just of course it starts, the prevention and stuff starts with that education of children and things like that, but also there are so many things that still need to change that people need to be aware of, you know? So yeah,
Yeah.
really
Because
important.
that's just it. I think too, you talk to people and they think uh, domestic violence, domestic abuse, they're hitting you.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, no, there's a whole bunch of pieces that make up the big umbrella of domestic violence, right? And what I do think is interesting is actually here they have really broadened the definition of abuse to include things like the financial, the coercion,
Hmm.
everything that comes under it, psychological abuse, everything else. Because in Canada, where I'm originally from, it's not that broad. Um,
Hmm.
so I think it's, even speaking with my family, they're amazed how good the laws already are here, which
Hmm.
is it's crazy because we talk here
Yes.
going, there needs to be so much more done, right?
Yeah.
It's wild. Did you have
Yeah.
a moment where you went, it was like, I don't know, after you came out, did you have this big, like, comforting moment relating to intimacy? I'll tell you one for me. It's after I was out, I went and bought pajamas. I bought like 10 pairs of pajamas because I wasn't allowed to wear them. And that was for me, it was huge. And I don't know, I still think about like the joy that having pajamas brought me that day. And I'm like, that was like a monumental like turning
I'm
point for
crying.
me. And and so I'm curious, was there something like that for you where you just go like, that's me, I'm back?
Yeah. So sleeping, I wasn't allowed to sleep a lot. And he controlled when I did sleep. And so I can't tell you, even now, the joy I get from being able to just go to bed whenever I want, is just immense. It's just, you know, I have no words. It's crazy that you think that these things don't happen. They're just so small to, you know, people who may not have been in that situation, who have not experienced it, which is very few people, isn't it? We're finding out
Yeah.
these days. Um, but yeah, it was the sleep. And you know, I had this conversation the other day, because I've been diagnosed with OCD since.
Right.
So I sort of had therapy, I've had medication and stuff for this, and even now, so I've been with my husband for over 3 years now. We
Yeah.
were married last year, but you know, we've come on this amazing journey together. Um, you know, especially with owning the sex shop and doing lots of sex education, and we're trying to make ourselves really aware of, you know, the communities that are raising awareness, and we want to be educated and we want to educate other people on this. And so not only are we providing this for other people, we also, you know, educate ourselves, and we learn so much along the way. And so I was just speaking the other day about this amazing journey we've gone on together. And, you know, my OCD was one of contamination, because, you know, when I was going through that, I used to really scrub myself. I felt really dirty.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever actually spoke publicly about this. But and so I did, and you know, that's where the OCD comes from. And I was speaking the other day, this was actually to my therapist the other day,
Yeah.
about how my husband sort of deals with that or understands me, because obviously sex, like you said, it's really difficult to relax back into pleasure and to trust someone with your
Hmm.
body again. And you know, in those moments where I might be feeling a bit icky, like I feel like I can I can't do so. It's the OCD. Like my body will sort of try to say ill no, which means that I
Yeah.
can't relax into that pleasure. And my husband now recognizes when I feel like that, so he just holds me, and like that is the most beautiful thing that I've like ever experienced. Just that connection with this other person who totally respects however I'm feeling in that moment. um so yeah, those little things are big things, aren't they? They're
They're
massive.
they're huge, you know, and I feel that the exact same way with my boyfriend. It's the same thing. Check. Are you okay? And I remember he asked me that the first time, and I don't know if I did cry or I almost cried because I was like, nobody's ever asked me before.
Yeah.
And, you know, um, feeling like you matter and that somebody just loves you, you know, with all those things that you carry along with you through life.
Yeah.
It's it's life changing. It truly is.
It really is. Yeah.
It's
I think I've moved my eyes bladder.
and you
Sorry.
look you look good, don't you worry. No, it's you know what? It's a very heavy topic, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important though that everybody they start to talk about it, because even for me, I think there's a lot of stuff that I hold about it still, but then I think at the same time I can speak my truth. I don't need to go and protect other people because I feel shameful of something of that they did.
Yes, definitely.
Do
Yeah.
and so I think the more we talk about it, the more there's conversation about it, the less it'll happen, I hope, you know,
Yeah.
and the more supported that people will feel,
Yeah.
you know. I think I talk a lot about here. I found safety. I did not go to refuge or anything like that. I was lucky enough. I had support from my family overseas. So financially, I was able just to, take care of what I needed to do. But without that, I wouldn't have been able to. I speak often about how thankful I am for my friends, for people reassuring me for months and months and months on end that what was happening was not normal, um, that it wasn't safe. And because, you go into your head, well, maybe it is just me. And maybe I am not a good person, or maybe I'm doing all these things wrong. But so getting that external reassurance from friends, but then having the legal system, my lawyers and therapists and doctors and police and everybody kind of hold my hand. I honestly feel like I was lifted and just carried through by this whole group of people. Like, you're gonna get through it.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I don't have any family nearby. uh they're all they're all in Canada, and so it's hard to kind of do this on your own. And you look back. I think for me, I look back sometimes and think, well, I had to do it. That was the only way we were going to be safe or ever happy again or anything like that. But then you actually look back and recognize, no, it does take a lot of bravery, and it takes a lot out of you. It's not just this little thing. Oh, I did it because I had to do it. It's not like doing your homework. It's like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
How, you know, I guess there's always a way out. Um, Even though they take time to put together, usually anybody who's listening who thinks, uh, why don't you just leave? It's never that easy. Doesn't matter. And anybody can fall into it too. That
Yeah.
was, you know, so there's no shame around it, really. We were talking about how people think, if it's so bad, why don't you just go?
So that question that comes up so often, like, why didn't you just leave? And while, like you said, there is lots of planning and stuff that goes into that, what I've learned from my own experience and from speaking to other women that have been through the same thing, is that space, like you said, how your family gave you that space to recognize that there was something wrong, and that, give you the space to make that decision to leave, to choose to leave. I think that space that mental space is so important and relevant to that decision.
Mhm.
And I actually, as I said, I went into refuge. I actually ended up being in 3 different refuges because he stalked me and found me. At one point, I was living in a refuge and still seeing him.
Oh my
Okay,
god.
which is
Yeah.
awful. Um, Lots of reasons, the control and things like that. Family members were going to die and things like that. Anyway, but what that did was it gave me that space, that safety. So if you think, when I was in that relationship and when I was with him, there was no other space in my mind to let anything else in, to breathe, to have any of my own thoughts, to think about anything. And I actually say quite often that I had no grasp on reality at all. That I couldn't have told you what day of the week it is, whether it was close to Christmas. I could not have done that. There was no grasp on reality. And so there was no space at all for any of my own thoughts. It was all about what he wanted in his life. So actually, what that safety done, that safety net that was the refuge, it gave me space, mental space, to recognize and to realize what was happening,
Mhm.
which then gave me, inch by inch, that little bit of confidence that I was able to escape. And what happened was that when I came out of that last refuge, he found me. He was stalking me again. He worked his way back into my house. The violence and stuff started again. The coercion never really went away. I just had space. Someone else had given me space to recognize. And that period of time after I came out of that refuge, that really was like a period where of strength, because it was me putting my foot down and saying, this is either going to be me or you that survives this, and I'm not prepared to let it be you.
Yeah.
So, and that really is what sort of the refuge gave to me, that strength to put my foot down and say, this is not going to happen anymore. And that's what led me to finally going back to the police and saying, and just being honest, because I'd spoken to the police so many times throughout those years. This was like a decade's worth. And I'd always just, told a little bit, told
Yeah.
this and told that, and never really been prepared for him to be in trouble, or I was so frightened of the consequences of me speaking about it. um
Yes.
yeah, so at that time, with this like newfound strength that the refuge had given me, I told him everything. And it was, it was the first time that I'd stood strong against him, and that I'd decided that from here on out, that was it. It was, I was going to survive that, and that was it. And I did. He stalked me for a few years, but that strength just meant that I was able to like withstand all of that. And to continuously call the police because he was breaching all these orders, continuously you know live in fear. But I knew that, you know this is what I had to do, and I was going to do it. I didn't care how long it was going to take. I was going to do it, and I had to do it to be able to have any sort of decent life afterwards. So yeah, that, the power of that break and that mental space that people give you, the people that help you through, like you said, your family, and for me it was like the refuge and the workers there. That the power of that mental space is immense, and I really feel like that is so key to women making that decision, to leave. Yeah, it's important.
Do you have any tips for women who are in an abusive situation when they're planning to leave. Obviously, every situation is different,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
one thing that the police told me was to document everything that happened, and it was extremely helpful. Um, one in getting out, two in also just the reminders, because our brains block out traumatic events.
Yeah.
And when I finished, I had 24 pages worth of information. It's horrifying. And I
Mhm.
look at it and I'm like, oh, oh, I kept it in a locked note on my phone. And,
Mhm.
but that was the advice that the police gave me. I
Yeah.
think my other advice to people personally is talk to your friends, your family, coworkers, whoever, let them know that there's something happening.
Yes. Yeah. I really don't know. There's so much there's so much that I want to give to women, and like even you saying about your pajamas, like started me off crying, and because I just feel like such an enormous like want for protecting other women, um, and I couldn't. Looking back, again, it was that mental space that allowed me to make that decision. So if I could say anything to somebody who is experiencing that, just try desperately to find that mental space. And if that is, like you said, writing everything down, because I also had to do that for, the breaches and stuff like that. But I found myself avoiding that because
Yeah.
it was just so much to be dealing with everything that he was doing, and then to be trying to put it down on paper as well was so much. Um, but again, also just some research. That there is so much access now. So even if it's an isolation thing, if you're able to get out and get to the library or something like that, like
Yeah.
use a different computer so that you're not checked up on.
Tracked. Yeah.
Yeah, and just look into just research domestic abuse. Women's aid have so much information on their website. They've also now
Yes.
got a website for teens, so from age 14 to 25, for recognizing bad behaviors. They've got a little quiz about how healthy your relationship is. So there's lots of information there. Make sure you're safe in gaining that information. And just check out your options, give yourself that space to make that decision, because that's going to be like the biggest decision you'll ever make. And you don't make the decision and that's it, it's over. You have to
Yeah.
fight, you have to find the strength to fight for so long. So just educate yourself, just make sure you're aware of everything, all of your options, what you can do, and make sure you make that informed decision. I'm not saying that it's the decision is so hard, don't make it. I'm saying you need that space to make that decision, because no one
Yeah.
can make that decision for you. The only
Yeah.
person who can make that decision is you. And just find a little bit of space to make that decision.
It's so true. You can be the only one who makes it. And I think for me too, that's like having my friends and having, like I say, my family, probably mostly my friends that I spoke to just online and things like that. That really helped me uh, just make that final decision. I know I think I can't remember. I think we talked about them changing pathways.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I use them
Me too.
here in Essex, in Basildon. I think that's where I went to them,
Yeah.
and that was I can't recommend them enough. So if they're definitely a resource to check out if you need. And I agree, even if you're not in that kind of situation, check out like women's aid or things like that, because there's so much information that you'll be able to help maybe yourself or somebody you love.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
good.
I used changing pathways too. They were absolutely life saving.
Yeah.
Absolutely saved my life. And even afterwards, throughout that period where I had to find that strength to fight, they have outreach workers. They support you. And actually, more recently, I've started holding my own coffee mornings to, allow space for women to come and just seek the education. And I had a lady from Changing Pathways come and join us, so that was really lovely. Um,
Oh,
Also, we've got our local sexual abuse therapy centre for women, CERIC, and two of their workers come along and joined us, and it was just really lovely. It's just that space, just that space.
I used Seric too, and they were just incredible.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know, I learned more about myself and more about the situation than I think I ever could have. They were, again, life changing for me.
yeah,
So it's amazing that you're involved with all these organizations now. I think,
yeah.
you know, it's it's just amazing. You're just amazing.
Oh, thank you. You too.
I'm really proud of you.
I'm really proud of
So,
you, pajamas.
thanks. I still love buying new pajamas.
Yeah.
It's like it's just great. It
Mhm.
feels nice to have pajamas. There's safety in pajamas.
Absolutely. There is.
So now you have different courses and different memberships out
Mhm.
there for women
Yeah.
uh, with that transformation. Do you want to tell us about those?
Sure. So, um, yeah, so now I sort of, I often think, are people going to wonder how I went from domestic abuse to sexual pleasure? um, but actually, it's so connected, like as I said, that sex education. And I absolutely believe that women who have been through abusive relationships need access to that sex education, because it's, you're relearning who you are, and you didn't have that comprehensive sex education in the first place, and it's so important for sense of self. So, I moved into pleasure. I'm here. I'm working with women to sort of build their body confidence, to relax, and to um, enjoy who they are. Believe in themselves. So I created a course. It's called From Abuse to Success. And like I said, uh, as you come out of that relationship, you're still in sort of this survival place where you are still fighting, and you're still finding that strength to, just be in the world free.
Yeah.
And so it was really important for me to, because I know there's lots of work going on to help women on all stages of their journey. And it was really important for me to make it known that there is a future where you feel safe in your body again. And so I've created this course. Actually, the first, it's a 4-part course, and the first part is mindful self-pleasure. So I speak through a self-pleasure practice for women, and it's all about just being able to touch your body and feel safe. Because when we are having sex, or if we are masturbating and things like that, it's a very vulnerable state, and we were already put in this dangerous, that vulnerable state was taken advantage of beforehand. So now it's really about learning how to be in that vulnerable state, but also feel safe. So
The
so that
first
first
episode.
the first episode is all about that mindful self-pleasure. It talks a woman through how to be comfortable in that vulnerable state, how to touch your body, how to touch your own vulva. And then it goes on to talk about how to masturbate. So in that situation, you're vulnerable, but this is teaching you how to feel safe in that vulnerable state. So it goes on, and for me, what I've learned through sort of this sex education, and through being in this caring, connected relationship, um it's really in those moments after you experience an orgasm, um for me, it's become apparent that those feelings of shame and those feelings of, being embarrassed about your body, in those moments straight after orgasm, you feel like an enormous rush of emotion.
Yeah.
And for me, for so long, that was shame. Um, and so it really is about sort of sitting with those feelings and understanding that being vulnerable is okay and that you can be safe. So that's what it starts off with. And actually, I'm really proud because that episode is going out to its first 50 service users on an app next week.
Oh,
It's not my
cool.
app. It's another person's app, and it's an app designed for women who are experiencing domestic abuse or have experienced domestic abuse. And so mine is sort of the final part in the journey, teaching them how to move on. So I'm very excited and happy about that. And then sort of the rest of the course just speaks through, I think the second one, so that one is like establishing ownership of your body. Then there's establishing ownership of your emotional well-being. So that goes into teach you how to, recognize your core values again, how to create healthy boundaries, and how to be fluid with your boundaries, because at some point you're going to want to allow space with those boundaries.
Yeah.
And to give an example of that, with exploring sexuality, so exploring with a new partner, you're going to want to not hold rigid boundaries, which we so often can do. You're going to want to open that up and explore new things, and just being aware that you can do that and protect yourself and protect your core values. Then the next one goes on to talk about establishing ownership of your financial freedom, and then the last one is establishing ownership of your first healthy relationship. So that talks through sex and intimacy, and how all those first three parts of the course should look in that relationship, because we don't want to let go of our sense of self again. We want to hold on to that and make sure that it stands. So yeah, it's really I'm really proud of it, actually, really proud of it. And so that's my course, from abuse to success.
It sounds like an incredible course.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to come take it. And then you have a membership as well, right?
Oh yes, I do. Yeah, so Her Intimacy is all about, it's basically just allowing women that space to speak about their sexuality, to speak about their pleasure. I find that more often than not, as humans, we do not seek validation, because we don't want to do that. What we normally like to hear other people's opinions and what they get up to in their lives, especially with sex and
Yeah.
stuff, because it's hidden. And we just want to know what other people are doing, and how that we're okay to do that too. So
Yeah.
it's just a space for, I publish a sex education class every month, but we've also have, the best part about it is our Zoom coffee morning. So twice a month, me and all the ladies, we meet and we speak about relationships, we speak about sex, we speak about pleasure, we speak about sex toys. I have Cherry Silk, so I sell lots of different tools for pleasure. So we're always having a giggle over, the sorts of things that they can do. We're just making it very, very normal to be comfortable and safe with your own body. So yeah, that is that's now on cherrysilk.co.uk, on the Cherry
Okay.
Silk website. And yeah, just about making it acceptable for women, to speak about their sexuality.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about how it's so taboo still, about
Yes.
enjoying sex, about, I mean, even just having sex. Oh,
Yes.
heaven forbid. But but obviously, we don't need to tell anybody it's a natural part of life.
Yes.
Been doing it for how many hundreds of thousands of years? Like,
Exactly.
it's do you think that attitudes are changing around it overall, or in the UK at least?
Yes, I like to just speak for the UK, because I can only, speak from my personal experience. I know that
Yeah.
it's very, very different in other countries. There are I can't even go into what is going on with women across the world right now. But yes, here in the UK, attitudes are changing. It is, it is due to that awareness on violence against women and girls, and also, the LGBTQ plus community, all the awareness that they are creating over sexuality and just being who you are. And yes, attitudes are changing. We still have so much work to do, and especially like worldwide, but it is
Yeah.
changing, and it's just the beauty of it. And this become especially apparent with me this week, because I champion porn. Okay, so this might come as a shock to many people because I have, I'm a woman and I've been abused by a man, and porn sort of got that that stigma, and rightfully so, because at the time, in the 60s, when film developed and porn became such a readily accessible thing,
Yeah.
the content was not was awful. So rightly so, it got this stigma, and that's sort of carried itself through. But just like the education we're doing for violence against women and girls, just like the education we're doing for sexuality and for other communities, that also needs, change. That also needs education.
Yeah.
And so I there's this lovely, lovely lady called Erica Last, who is an adult film producer, and her focus is on women's pleasure and giving women the power. And I've watched one of these films. I've been involved with lots of her work, and I'm now partnering with her to promote healthier pornography. And
Cool.
yeah, it's really cool because it's masturbating, and to me, porn. I don't know how much time we've got left, but porn,
You can
um,
talk as long as you want, girl.
is just it's you know it allows my husband and I to speak about so many different things. It
Yeah.
gives us the space to speak about our desires, to speak about our limits and our boundaries, and
Yeah.
just be. It gives us that space to be open and to communicate about these things. I just think it's so valuable, and so when you have, this amazing woman who's made it the actual content appropriate, it represents everybody. Pleasure is at the forefront, and there's an ethical production process.
Yeah.
It just it makes it it makes it so it makes it so much better. And that education, I feel like I need to now educate on that also, to break down that stigma.
I think
Yeah,
you're right. It's
yeah,
like, because I think that's really the issue that most women have with it, is it's so angry and so aggressive
exactly,
normally,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's like, oh, I don't think nobody really wants to be doing that. It's I mean, and sometimes, for maybe lack of a better word, maybe it's the right word, it's terrifying to watch it sometimes. You're like, oh,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know. So
yeah,
seeing
exactly.
this new perspective, that's
Yeah,
huge. I think lots of women would be delighted to watch it.
yes, definitely. But just much like, patriarchy is still apparent in our world today, um, so is porn.
Yeah,
It's still there. So the idea is we educate, and we create it ethically, and we make it better so that it goes towards down the right path. And yeah,
yeah. I don't know, and I think too. We also know that our children will one day be checking it out, and I don't think we would want them to see the things that have gone on in some of them.
hmm,
So
yeah,
hopefully, then it's just a trend that continues across the
yeah,
board.
definitely. Definitely. And I have lots of this actually. Recently, I've put myself on Reddit, and it seems to be that lots of people on Reddit are not willing to um, talk about masturbation in a very good light, or to talk about all sorts of things to do with sex and pleasure in a very good light. And it really shocks me actually. And I had somebody talking about no, sorry, I read a question. A man had been masturbating and using porn since age 11. Um,
Right.
and this is obviously a massive subject that I will not go into. But like you said, the point is children, I mean, masturbation from the age of 11 is normal. We'll get that
Yeah.
one straight. And, you know, that is really what sex education is there for, to make sure that you're doing it in, you know, a healthy way,
Yeah.
and to make sure you know that that's okay. You shouldn't be feeling shame, you know, to touch your own body. Um, and so where was I going with that? And so having children at that age having access to porn, which they do, we can't ignore the fact that they do, because they do. So if there is a way that we can educate on the type of porn that is available, and on how to use it in a healthy manner,
Yeah.
and to sort of, you know, just make sure, like I said, with Erica Luss and her films, that they represent all body types, you know. The focus is on healthy pleasure, and safety and consent. And, you know, if we're going to allow, you know, access, if there's going to be access to porn anyway, let's make sure it's something that's healthy, and, you know, that they are making informed decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Do you think there will ever be more regulation on the sites? I don't like the ones that you can upload your own your home videos. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Will there
So
be more regulation there?
yeah, I've in sort of I wrote a blog post this week on porn, and sort of with my research and stuff, I went through, you know, Pornhub, because that's like readily available and it's free. It's all
Yeah.
free. And so I went through sort of their statistics and their sort of uh, rules and regulations on, you know, content producers and consumers. And um, it does feel more regulated. I can't say that I've ever, you know, at my age and in my generation, I can't say that I've ever done any sort of research into the porn that was, you know, 30, 40 years ago. And
Yeah.
but obviously we know that it wasn't regulated.
Yeah.
And so it does seem, I can't, you know, comment on the change, but from a place of safety and consent, it does seem like these people, these big organisations are putting rules in place. And again, that's obviously apparent with things like OnlyFans. Um,
Right.
and I've been through all the rules and, you know, the safety features. There are documentaries now on Netflix about it, and it is just about providing that safety and that consent, and making sure that the content is appropriate and, you know, regulated. And it does seem that we're moving in the right direction.
It's exciting to think about probably even in 10 years where we'll be,
Yeah,
you
definitely.
know, because it seems like there is progress being made. There's more conversations being had about everything, you know, sexual wellness, the abuse side, everything, you
Yeah.
know, and building healthy relationships. It's so, I mean, it's such a huge topic. I mean, we could spend a whole day talking about it, really, when you,
Yeah,
or
definitely.
more than a day.
Yeah.
You know, when you break into all the little pockets, like, you know, even how your childhood shapes, or your first sexual experiences, or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever it could be, you know, the friends you have, the city you grew up in, you know,
Yeah,
anything,
definitely.
everything, it all plays such an influence. It's just really cool because there is so much more knowledge available to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
It's exciting. So if people want to find you, where should they find you?
They can find me mostly on cherrysilk.co.uk.
Okay.
And then I am on, yeah, it's probably best to find me there. Her intimacy
And they
is,
can join like your mailing list there and
yes,
things
yeah,
like that.
definitely. Yeah. I
And
also have a Facebook group. So if there are any women that are have experienced domestic abuse or are and would like sort of that safety of the community, so we have the Facebook group that's called From Abuse to Success, and I run that group, so I'm present in the group every day. So any questions or anything, like, come in and just be in a safe place with us.
yeah, and I'll put the links in the show notes and everything
Perfect.
else. I'm excited for women to be entering your
Yes.
space. It's
Uh-huh.
do you think, I know I'm just throwing crazy things out there, but do you think you and your husband would ever have a group for men to learn about
Yes.
relationships, you know,
Yeah. I think that's one of our goals, actually. So, um, my husband still works full time, and I'm
right.
full time in the business. So as soon as, which I'm thinking is going to be, we've planned for September.
Oh,
He's going to be leaving work, and we're both going to be working in the business full time, which is very exciting. And that is our goal. We want to provide the same space for men also, because that's really important as well, for men
yeah.
to seek help and support. We know sort of all the screws around men speaking about their feelings as well. So yeah, it's just about providing spaces for people, whoever you are, to feel safe and to feel supported.
Yeah. That's amazing. I think it'll be such a huge asset for men too. Like, oh, there's so much cool stuff coming
Yeah,
out of this. I love it. So
definitely.
I will put all your links in the show notes when we go
Perfect.
live with this episode. And I'm going to say thank you so much again for sharing your story, for being here, and just for being the strong and amazing woman that you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us today. Take
Thank you.
care. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Healthy Metal Hippie podcast. If you're looking for more, head to healthymetalhippie.com and let's connect. Until next time, wishing you a magical week. See you later.